Hi everybody, it's Jean here from Truelove Quilts for You. Our block party, block number 17. Wow, 17, isn't that amazing? I have to tell you though, I have a bit of a tale of woe this week, what happened to me. As you know, I look at my magazines, or I look at books, pattern books, or I even watch tutorials to give me an idea of what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do, so I'm like, well, what can I do? So, and I find simple blocks to do, and then I break them down, of course, for you. So this week I actually went on YouTube, and I was watching a tutorial on what's called a disappearing pinwheel block. We've done a disappearing 9 patch. Awesome. Whatever block that was, block 14, whatever block that was. A lot of people liked it. It's easy. You make a 9 patch, you cut it in half both ways. Awesome. Makes a nice block. Well, I was looking at this block, and it was called a disappearing pinwheel. And I, in another video a while back, have made a pinwheel block. Real nice and easy. The way that we make half square triangles where I stitch all the way around. And then you make a nice pinwheel block. So I thought, well, I'm going to do one more for the disappearing pinwheel block, and I looked it up. What it is you make your pinwheel block, which I did. I did a practice block, okay? Oh, out of some scraps I had. So I did a pinwheel block, and then what you do is you have to get your ruler, and you have to divide whatever size block you have in thirds, right? So my block was 13 inches after I made my pinwheel, perfect pinwheel block. So I'm like, you know me and math, I don't have a clue. So I Googled it. I'm like, what's 3 into 13? Okay, so it came out 4.33. What is 4.33? So I'm looking up, like, is there like something on the, like an image for 4.33? It wasn't real, it didn't really do an incredible job of explaining what is 4.33 inches. So anyway, long story short, I cut my block to what I thought, like 4 something, and I cut it, I cut this pinwheel block in, what you do is you cut it in, like you make a 9 patch. Like just like we did, we make a 9 patch out of this pinwheel block, and then you just turn your squares around. Anyway, and to make this very interesting star pattern. It's really, really cool. I thought you'd really like it. Well, no, you wouldn't, because my math. So that was whatever day that was. One of my squares turned out like a rectangle. I didn't get the math right. So I'm messing about with it, and I just got so fed up. So I thought, okay, forget that block. I'm not doing that this week. So this is in one day, right? I should have stepped away from my machine. I was thinking about it, like, how I always say to you, oh, if it's not fun, stop it. Like, why did I continue doing this? It wasn't fun. I just was not having fun. I was not having a good day. It must have been a full moon or something. So forget the pinwheel block. So I thought then I went to a real easy block. I'm like, forget that. I just got to do an easy block. Last week's was easy, just the rectangles using lots of fabric. So I found a pattern. Oh my word. So easy, 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 easy. Half square triangles. Okay? Just a block with half square triangles. 16 of them. Real pretty. So I thought I was up to my eyeballs with math. So it says cut 3 7/8 inch squares and make your half square triangle. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm cutting 4-inch squares. And actually somebody had written in like, oh, what's the difference between an 1/8 and a 16th? Ain't nobody got time for that. I'm just going to cut them bigger and make them smaller. So I'm like, I'm going to do that. So I just cut 4-inch squares, and I made 8 units. I'll show you the block, 16 half square triangles. Put them together, and I trimmed them down. So it was a bigger block, and it was a bit ragged with the dog ears, so I trimmed them down. And I did my math. I did my math properly, right? I trimmed them down to 3 1/4 inches. I show you, well, I don't show you because I erased it all. Shush! I'm videoing. Sorry. So, I cut them down to 3¼ inches each square. I squared them up. Because my logic was 3¼ and 3¼ is 6½, and then 6½ and 6½ to make to make the 4 across is 3¼ is 3¼ and 3¼ is 6½, and 6½ and 6½ is 13. Awesome, right? I got to block 13 inches, so it's going to square down to 12½ inches. Yeah, you guys who know this, you know that that's not right. It should have been 3½, because I did my block, and as I was making it, I thought that looks a bit small, and I thought they won't notice it, so I sort of starched it and I stretched it, and it ended up 12 inches, and that's the first time I've really finished a block, and quite a few of you have been saying, oh, I made a block and it's 12 inches or it's 11½ inches or something like that, and it should be 12½ inches. And I'm thinking, what in the world? At that point, that was in one day, I made these 2 blocks which were disasters. And I thought, so I called my husband and I'm crying. I'm like, where in the world? I did 3¼ and he's like, darling, he's English. He's like, darling, don't worry, let me come home and I'll help you with the math. And I'm like, I don't want help with the math. I want to throw this stuff away. I was just so fed up. So I stepped away from my machine, and that night he's like, come on, let me take you out to dinner. So we went out to dinner. It was real nice. And I was still like, I was upset. I'm like, I'm not having fun. This stinks. I'm not having fun. I don't want to do this. So that day, whatever it was, we went to a nice restaurant. It was lovely. Anyway, I came back, a few days off. Thought, I don't want to do this. So I came back and I made block 17. This is block 17. And I made it properly. He showed me the directions. He showed me the measurements, I should say. So this, folks, long story, even longer, as you know I do. This is block 17. All right? So it's 16 half square triangles. And I actually do start out with, I just cut them 4 inches, and then I squared them up, the units, each unit, to 3½ inches, not 3¼ inches. I really, my non-math brain, it just doesn't work. So I had 2, not failures, because I thought, I made a perfect block. Let's see, made a block, 12½ inches. So this is what I'm showing you. This is what I'm showing you. I did my tutorial. I set my new camera up, and I showed you how to make this block, and it turned out fine. Turned out right. But I was looking at my pathetic, like, 12-inch block, and I thought, it's an extra block. But what I've done is, and I did videotape this. I did videotape it. It's at the end of the video. What I've done is I took my 12-inch block, and I thought, well, a lot of you people, no, some of you people have been saying my blocks are smaller. And I'm thinking, like, I'm saying, well, just add a little bit to it. I show you what I did, and this is what I did. So this block was 12 inches, and I just added, and I show you what I did. I just added a little border. And I show you, I made this border bigger, and then I cut it down exactly. I trimmed it down exactly to fit the 12½ inches. And I show you how to do that. My point in me waffling along here is, if you have, all of our blocks in this block party should be 12½ inches. If you have some that are 12 inches, or some that are even 11¾ inches, or some that are 12½ or 13 inches, you can always cut down. You will be cutting points off. Who cares? Or you can add this little bit of border to each block, because it is important when you go to put, in a couple weeks, when we go to put our blocks together, that whatever size they are, whatever size you're comfortable with, is they need to be the same size. All 20 blocks need to be the same size. So there is my solution, and I show you, and it takes on another life, doesn't it? It's really quite delightful. I just bordered it with white, but I was saying in my little tutorial here, you could border it. You could have done this 12-inch block, and you could have made really like all different patterns, 4 different patterns of your fabric. The reason I was doing this on last week's block 17 and block 16, is we're probably having some scraps now. We're getting to the point. I have quite a lot of fabric because I think this fabric line had like 40, what's up? Sorry. I'm filming. Excuse me, Maxwell.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
For interrupting.
Okay.
Can you
Sorry.
babysit Striker and Corset on Tuesday morning?
Okay. Yes. My grandchildren. Of course I can babysit them. Yes. Corset and Striker. I'm going to babysitting them. Okay.
Edit that out.
Okay.
Edit that.
They don't mind. I always say they like me. So I'm babysitting on Tuesday, two grandchildren. That's sweet. Where was I? So I should edit that out. I won't. So anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah. So the last 2 weeks is I've used a lot of our fabric scraps up, and this week especially. This is 8 print fabrics and then 8 background fabrics to make our 16 half square triangles. Real simple block, but again, I was saying this is, even though we use quite a lot of fabric, and some of our blocks only use 1 or 2 or 3 pieces of fabric, this is still a light block. Do you see that? It's nice and light and airy with my white background. If you have a dark background, it might be a bit visually heavy or bit visually busy. So go to town. This is 9 fabrics, the background and 8 different prints. So that's our block. That's my tail. I was pathetic. I was really pathetic. I did not have fun, and I stepped away from my machine for a couple of days. Anyway, I'm making this. Hopefully, my computer's still away. I'm filming this a little bit while ago from when you're watching it, but hopefully my computer will be up and running. So anyway, there is my block number 17. The last 2 weeks have been, real easy, but using up a lot of our fabrics. We have some scraps left over. Again, I want to do a star. I wanted to do a pinwheel star, but I messed up on that. I don't know math. I don't know. And my husband's like, oh, like I said, he was like, oh, I'll help you. And I'm like a high school dropout. And he's like a university degree with tons of letters behind his name. And I was like getting like brain like freeze, like, stop explaining it to me. I don't want to do this. And he's like getting graphs out and trying to help me with the math. And I'm like, stop. I'll make a simple little quilt block this week. So anyway, there you go. Block 17. I hope you have a nice time. 12.5 inches. And if you screw up on your blocks, just add a little hunk of fabric. And the important thing, like I said a million times, they just have to be the same size when we put them together. But there's my first attempt. Didn't work. There's my second attempt. And it worked. All right, folks. So thank you so much. Following along, Block Party 17. Have at it. Thanks again. I love you guys that you're following along and you're enjoying this as much as I am. All right. See you later. Bye. I'm at my machine. And as you can see, I have my pile of my background squares that are being marked diagonally from corner to corner. And all I'm going to do is I have my other squares here, my print squares. What we're going to do is, we've done it dozens of times, we're going to be placing our 1/4 inch foot on the edge of we're going to be placing it on the line. We're stitching down 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch away from that marked line. Now, instead of going off and doing one at a time, I'm going to be chain piecing these. Now, I'm fortunate enough to have a sewing machine plate that has, where the needle goes in, I've talked about this before, just one tiny little hole. A lot of you will have a machine which has a hole that's like that. More of an oval, and that's so when you're doing a decorative satin stitch or a zigzag stitch, that the needle is going over 1, 2, 3, 4 to make that decorative stitch. This machine that I'm using only has a straight stitch, and so the machine only has this small hole, this plate, because all my machine does is make this stitch up and down. Doesn't go across, doesn't go anywhere else. So why I'm saying this, and I've addressed it before, is, whoops, wrong side to wrong, I mean right side to right side, is that little slot can eat your fabric, can chew the beginning of your fabrics up. And it's an annoying thing. So what you might want to be able to do is you want to take a piece of fabric, maybe about an inch, maybe folded, and start your stitching on that piece of fabric. So when it comes to this corner here, your corner doesn't get eaten. The fabric, it's called a leader. It's called, and you can end it like a leader and an ender. They're called. They're just a little piece of fabric, just a little hint, so your fabric doesn't get like I say, get eaten. Now I'm going to be doing this stripe, and with a directional fabric, if I do my diagonal from this corner to this corner, this is how my half square triangles are going to end up. I don't like that. I don't like that look there. I think I want to do it opposite. Hold on, let me just see. I'm going to do it this way. Yeah. So when I open up my half square triangle units, both of them are going to look, I'm going to end up with two that looking like that, with my stripes going out. So just a little thing if you're working with a stripe or a diagonal. I've been wanting to work with my stripes since I've had stripes in this fabric collection, and I haven't really worked with them because I'm a little bit frightened too. So here's another one. So my right side's together, and then that's the correct way out. That's configured that way. So I'll just put my 1/4 inch foot. Well, that's a little bit small. That's okay. Right along there. I've done 8 of these units. Trying to keep my hands out of the way for my new camera. I hope it's video. It's like on this little, like a little funky little tripod, so I can get a bit closer. But then it shows my hands. So just go off, and then just keep my needle down for a second. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn these around. We've done this before. This is chain piecing. Just pull that out gently, ever so gently. Line my presser foot up against that line. And again, I'm just going to start just on the reverse, so on the other side of my line. Just, you see how it just chain pieces along. I've ironed all of these pretty flat with my nice sharp rotary cutter with a new blade. I'm going to be cutting these in half, and I'm cutting, as you know, on that line. Like that, because I'm going to take them over to my ironing board, and I'm going to set the seam, of course, and then I'm just going to roll that up. You just want to be very careful of this seam here, because that is on the bias. So you don't want to be stretching that seam. You just want to roll it over, and then we're going to come back and we're going to trim this unit up. We're going to trim this unit here to 3.5 inches. My husband figured it out for me, as I was saying to you. It's a little bit bigger than 3.5. We're going to trim it up perfectly to 3.5 inches. But it's the ironing and the setting the seam and the ironing is going to make the world of difference to getting this nice and square. So I'm going to just take this over to the ironing board, and I'll be back. I've taken my units over and I've pressed them. And I've actually made 2 separate piles. You don't have to do this. You can just pull them random. But there's 2 piles of exactly the same ones because we have 8 of one, the same of each one. I put one on top and one on the bottom, turned it over. Only because we're going to be, what I think it looks nice, since we have 16 blocks in our block, I have 8 on the top, the 8 different ones, and then the 8 different ones on the bottom. So that's how I do it, however you want to do it. Now, how we're going to do this is each pile here, I'm just going to square up. Now, we've done this before. We want to square up our blocks to 3.5 inches. And it's just a slice, a small slice off of our 4-inch block. And again, if you want to make sure that you have your ruler that has this line on it, okay? We've done this before. And with that line, nice on that seam there, you're going to find your 3.5 inch marker here, 3.5 inch. I did it 3.25 inch, my other, and I screwed up. Yeah. So I'm going to line that right up, and it's just a little hair off there and a hair off there, but boy, does that make the difference. And then I'm going to come back and do the same exact thing, and it's just that little dog ear. So I'm going to continue making these perfectly square, lovely half square triangles. Okay, so I've got my 2 piles of nicely trimmed up half square triangles, and all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to start laying them out in a nice pleasing pattern, whatever that may be. I'll just mess about with this. I have some more plains, and then I have a few busier patterns, as you can see. And these 8, as I said, these are different. These are the 8, and then the bottom 8 will be, the same, but they'll be on the bottom. Yeah, 1/4 inch seam on and right off. And then what I do is I just lay right down so I don't get confused. I pick up my next 2. There's a way, as I keep saying, there's a way to chain piece these, and people zip along. I've chain pieced and I've zipped along, but not when you're just making 1 block. I mean, come on, you just can make 1 block at a time. Take your time. Hopefully these measurements will work out. I'll make all 12-inch blocks. No, hopefully this block will be 12.5 inches. But as I said, I'm going to show you how I'm going to sort of fix my other block if you've been having difficulty getting to your 12 inches. I just do 2 lots at a time. Sewn all my rows together, my blocks together in my rows, and now I'm just going to sew my rows together. And if you know what, like we've done a whole bunch of times before, what I've done is each row that I have sewn together, I'm going to, in this case, in either case, I'm going to press my seams one way. These seams that I've sewn the blocks together, I'm going to press one row one way, the other row going the other way. So they nest together. So this top row, I'm going to stitch to my second row. And then what you're wanting to do is you're going to be taking your pins. If you're using them, you can feel really nice how those seams on these 1, 2, 3 points have nested really well together. And if you've sewn your blocks correctly, your 1/4 inch seam, you're going to be matching your points up right there for these little little triangles. Your points are going to match right up 1/4 inch. So I'm going to start at this end, 1/4 inch, and I'm going to just stitch, having nested my seams together real nice. Yeah, I just stitched over my pins. Shouldn't do that. And right off. And then there's my first row. That's turned out really quite lovely. I'm going to go over and I'm going to press this seam real good. I'm going to set that seam, and then I'm going to roll it where it wants to go. And in this case, I can see it just sort of wants to roll upwards. So then what I do is I take this unit and I turn it over onto my third row. So here is my finished block. Let me just get my isn't that pretty? I love it. I love this block. I think it's so pretty. There's my, oh geez. Just slightly, just a hair. Let me just trim that. Just slightly, a little bit big on that side. Just take that sliver off. And 12.5 inches. And just slightly there on that little bottom corner. 12.5 inches. So all my blocks are now 12.5 inches. Pretty, isn't it? Very, very pretty effective way to use your scraps up for this block. Yeah, very, very pretty. Crisp and clean, and these points here, these are what you're going to be matching. I didn't match that too well. That's fine. But I just love it. That one's going to get cut off. I don't know what I did there, but that's okay. I'm perfectly happy with this. This is absolutely fine. Now, what I wanted to show you, I like that. What I wanted to show you is this block here. Okay, now, I'm going to address this. Let's see. It's again, I was going to say, when you go to put your block together, your quilt together, it doesn't matter, again, I've made it to look like that configuration, right? But you can, by all means, do it like that. You can do it this over here. There's 4 ways you can do this block, or you can do it left to right, or you can do it how I've done it, you know, over this way. But again, you can mess about with all your blocks, figure them out how you like them. If you like all of the prints going up, that's going to be the fun of your own sampler quilts. It's going to be fantastic to see who comes up with what in their blocks. Now, what I'm going to do here is, as you can see, my block is 12 inches, a little bit less than 12 inches actually. On that side, it's a 12-inch square. This is the 1/2 inch, and this is 1/2 inch. So what I'm going to do, and this might happen to some of you. Your blocks are 12 inches or even 11.5 inches. What I've done is I've just sliced off a piece. This is the width of fabric, so this is about 42 inches, and I'm going to need another piece, just about 1.5 inches. I'm not going to use that much, but I'll show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to treat this like a little mini quilt. Okay, now a little mini quilt. Where's my right sides together? I'm going to start on each side of this quilt here, of this little block, and I'm going to put like a border on it. All right, just laying that strip onto this block here. I'm going to do that on both sides. Then I'll come back and I'll trim that little bit off there. I'm gonna do 1/4 inch just along the side there. And then I'm going to turn it, I'm going to do another strip on the other side, 1/4 inch, right sides together. And then I'm going to press those pieces over, just like you would a border. And then I'm going to come back, having trimmed these ends off, then I'm going to come back, right sides together, and I'm going to put on the top and the bottom border. I'm going to put that top and bottom border off. I'm going to pull these, it's going to be out like that. So these have to be longer. And this one has to be, this border's on here. I'm just going to put a top and a bottom border off. I'm going to go do that, and then I'm going to show you how we just trim it up. Here is my block that was too small. And all I've done is I've added a little bit of strip on it. I haven't even gone to the end because that's going to be cut off. I've just added the sides, and I've added the top and the bottom, just like you would a quilt. Now, I'm going to take it alters the look slightly, but in a quilt, no one's going to notice. Oh my word. Oh my word. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 12.5 inch ruler, which I want this block to be exact, and very carefully very carefully, I'm going to eyeball my 12.5 inches. I'm going to try to have the same amount here and there and over here. My lines are nice and straight. Down here, just push that up slightly. And I'm going to trim this block. I can see through that ruler. I can see through the ruler. Let me just see. Yeah, I can see through that ruler that this here, my block, these little, this is all excess here. I just cut it just so I could trim it down nicely. I see my line is like straight there. I see my line is straight. Let me just see. It's a little crooked over that way. Just straighten that up slightly. I can see it's straight over here and on the top. Now, I'm just got a little bit crooked over there. What's happened there? Yeah, so to my eye, it's pretty good. So now I'm just literally going to trim this block, my little quilt block. Keep my ruler nice and firm. I'm going to trim this with a little bit of an extra edge. And there we have a 12.5 inch block. And I mean, it's sort of bordered. It looks nice. Now actually, and there's a 12.5 inch block. Super. Exact size to put my blocks together. They're both exactly 12.5 inches. Now, you could actually, if you wanted to, in this block, make it really interesting, just add a little tiny bit of, on each side, another piece of print fabric. So your block would really pop. So again, I keep saying there's no mistakes. There's no mistake. This point got cut off. That one's okay. This one got cut off and that got, oh my word, like it's beautiful. It's beautiful and it's the right size. So if you have made your blocks, you find them too small, by all means, you can cut the rest off to be smaller. But if you want to have them at their 12.5 inches and be along with all of us in the block party who are making their blocks at 12.5 inches or striving to, this is a little method that you can do. And it's pretty. We've just literally bordered that. Now, what we're going to be doing, we're going to add a sashing anyway. So you have a little, this is just a little interesting block. So there's just a way. I don't want you to panic if your blocks are a bit small, because you can always jiggery-pokery it and make your blocks bigger. And then if they're too big, you can always cut them down. It's no big deal. But at the end of the day, you do want, whatever your size blocks are, you do want them all to be the same size. So there you go. Now I did my heart. My heart block, which I have an extra one of. I have this as an extra one, and I have the black one that I did. What was it, number 13 that I had, it was too much black. So I have a couple blocks left over, and that's what they're called, orphan blocks. Hey, I may use that one. I don't know. I'll see which one I want to use. But both of them, look at how different. Look at how pretty that is with that little border. Just even lifts it again. But we're going to be adding sashing. That's basically sort of what our quilt's going to look like with white sashing between it. So anyway, there is block number 17. I hope you love it, how you fix it. Don't stress about, your size blocks. You can make them bigger. You can cut them smaller. It's no big deal. You can cut off the points. It's fine. It's great. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. Look how pretty. So there you go, folks. Block number 17. That's my block there. I did use slightly different fabrics. I like this one. It's pretty, it's bold. So there you go, block 17. I hope you've enjoyed making block number 17, our block party. Super. Thanks, folks. See ya. Bye.